While the natural instinct to get in an umpire's face and insult his mother is still very much embedded into a player's DNA, instant replay has wildly altered the way in which base runners react to being called out. As I was looking at manager challenge rates on Baseball Reference, something that I imagine only really cool and completely sane people do on Friday nights, I began noticing the wide discrepancy between successful managers and unsuccessful ones. Take Phil Nevin, for example. Phil's impressively low challenge success rate of 21.4% was dead last in MLB this past season. And after taking a look at some of his challenges, that number starts to make sense pretty quickly. This play in particular is my favorite because Phil just lets the challenge rip on a play where Mike Trout was out by literally a full step. But hey, if Michael Scott's taught us anything, it's that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. After looking at the worst the league had to offer, I thought I'd take a gander at the challenge snipers of Major League Baseball. Guys like Aaron Boone, Dave Martinez, Buck Showalter, and Bruce Bochy. These managers were good at challenging and consistently performed well over time. But you know who they weren't? They weren't Ned Yost. This dude was like the god of challenges, executing reversals at a wildly high rate. He quite literally got better every single year, culminating in an 82% overturn rate in his last season in 2019. He currently sits at number 3 all time with a 70% success rate. And the two guys he's behind are guys with only 1 and 3 years of experience. So naturally, I had to figure out why Yost was so much better than everyone else. So I did what any other baseball YouTuber would do. I scrolled Twitter for 2.5 hours. I drank a Red Bull, got some wings, no big deal. I ate a pizza, pepperoni of course, played 17 Immaculate Grids, didn't finish a single one, thought about how awesome it would be to start researching my video, hopped onto Reddit to troll some random post that definitely needed my commentary, went to bed, woke up, went to a real job that I definitely have, came home from said job that, just to reiterate, is real, scrolled Twitter for 4 hours, and then I hopped on Baseball Savant. Baseball Savant has all of the plays that have been challenged since 2014, so I started watching a bunch of Royals replays to see if I could figure out the secret to Ned Yost's success. Well, I found jack shit. Okay, well, I guess I didn't find jack shit. I did actually realize that the Royals replay coordinator is unbelievable at his job, and that's why Royals managers have been so good over the years. But the research led me to something else, and something a lot more interesting. The player reactions. As I watched replay after replay, I would see players subtly and not so subtly disagree with the umpire's call. As soon as the umpire began gesturing to make a call, whoever was on the wrong side of it would immediately call out his bullshit. The player's displeasure was most often expressed in the form of a point to the dugout, but sometimes he would wag his finger or do the headset mime. But in any case, however it was done, it was a message to his manager that he wanted that play challenged. And thus, the stat player challenge was born. Gotta put the X in there to make it sound official, of course. Once I realized how often this happened, I decided to collect all of the challenge data from 2023 so I could answer the question, what is the success rate of player challenges? Before I gathered this research, I wrote down what I thought the data would show, or my hypothesis for all you academics out there. I think it's different from player to player, but in general, base runners think they are safe more often than they are. So this would obviously mean that I thought player challenge success rate for base runners would be below 50%. Maybe 47-ish percent. And I had a couple reasons for this. Number 1, athletes are biased. Of course you think you got fouled. Of course you think you got held. And of course you think you were safe. And number 2, the replay system allows your manager to save you. It feels like a get out of jail free card for when you get caught taking an extra base. There's always a chance that you weren't actually out, but it was so close that your naked eye just couldn't tell. I figured players would overcount their safeness. Well, like most things in my life, I was wrong. Let's check out what actually happened. Out of the several challenge types that exist, I only collected data from tag plays, because those are the plays where you get the player's immediate and rawest reactions. But it was also the play type that was challenged the most, which means that there was plenty of data to look at. The way I went about collecting the data was pretty simple. Every play would go into one of 4 buckets. The 2 columns would denote what the umpire's call was and whether it was overturned, and the 2 rows would describe whether the player wanted it challenged. So, for example, this last clip that we just saw, the umpire initially calls Jose Ramirez out, and as we can see, Jose did not agree with that call, and after review, the play would get overturned, so this play would go into the top left box. Another example is this play, where Nolan Jones throws out Seiya Suzuki at the plate, with an absolute cannon by the way, but Suzuki knows he's out, so he doesn't react at all. So this one goes into the bottom right corner because the call was upheld, but the player didn't think it should be challenged. So, what did the data actually show? The data showed that, and get this, you might want to sit down for this because I was pretty shocked as well. The data showed that players that are directly involved in the play have a pretty fucking good idea what happened. I know. Surprising. Base runners were correct in overturning the call 62% of the time. Apart from the obvious reason in that they were the closest person to the play, why were players hitting on these challenges at such a high clip? So, number 1, they can feel if someone tagged them, or in many cases didn't tag them. The umpire has no way of knowing what you felt, obviously. Number 2, they have an angle that the umpire might not have. And number 3, they have an incentive to be honest. They don't challenge every play because they want their team to win. They don't want to waste a challenge if they know they're out. It's like a good poker player. They only bet when they know they have good odds. Now that I've spent 25 hours of my life figuring something out that any idiot with a brain could logically piece together by just watching a game of baseball, it raises an important question. If players are right this often, shouldn't the manager just blindly trust them? Like, if I had a friend that was hitting 62% of his bets over the course of a year, I would take his side on every single bet, no questions asked. I don't care if he's exclusively betting on cheese rolling. I'm riding every pick. Managers can't just blindly trust players because when a close play happens, they're listening to their replay analysts tell them if they should challenge. I have heard, however, that replay analysts themselves will take a player's reaction into consideration, and oftentimes it can lead them to a decision even quicker. Remember, they only have 15 seconds to challenge. The other reason is that some players just suck at knowing when they're actually out. Like Vlad Guerrero Jr., for example. This play in the wildcard game was pretty funny because everyone in the stadium knew he was out, but Vladdy just refused to accept it. Okay. So players can predict calls at a better rate than even umpires can. But that's what makes replay fun. And there's still an advantage to be gained by teams. Until MLB releases an AI version of replay where there's actual robot umpires on the field, with like 47,000 micro cameras covering every inch of the diamond, there's always going to be a human element to this process. Although I do love the idea of a player trying to argue with a robot umpire that makes perfect calls. And it would definitely be Harper too. He'd be like, dude, that's a soft call. Are you serious? You're so soft, man. And then the robot's like, go back to the dugout, pretty boy.